Chris Hansen here, and I'm going to need you all to take a seat right over there and check out Birds versus Boys.
I think you're completely right here, and I hate it.
Yep. Hey, idiots. Stop doing dumb things. I got 2 phones.
Upset alert. Upset alert.
I might go insane.
I think you're already there. There's no hope. Hope is gone.
If this was an AFC North podcast, we'd be done in 15 minutes.
Bob Hope.
I'm going to drink bleach.
That is
the team you promised me you were going to be this year.
This is the Consciously Hopeful podcast.
I'll be watching.
What's going on, everybody? Aiden from Birds vs. Boys here, reacting to that game. That was a game, and that could be the most we could say about it all night, and I think everybody would be okay with it. But we'll get into everything that happened as the Eagles improved to 7-2, beating the Green Bay Packers on the road on Monday Night Football. A 10-7 game. For a game that ended 10-7, there sure seems to be a lot of narratives to discuss for both teams, both positive and negative, and going forward for the trajectory of both teams for the rest of the season. Truly, I feel like I was watching a late year high school football game where all the kids are cold and, you know, they're not as strong as professional athletes. So it's a lot harder to throw the football in those games if you played high school football. And it just feels like it's very back and forth, not a lot of points scored. Felt very much like that, but in a professional setting there last night. It felt like the scene in the debate where the moderator goes, "At no point was that sentence in debate coherent, and I reward you no points." That's what I felt like at times watching both of these offenses and the decision-making from both of these offenses. But as always, let's start with the positives. You got to start with the Eagles defense. When we did a preview show for this game, what did we talk about? Same unit for both teams would be the defining factor of this game. It was the defensive line for both. And we said for the Packers, this was quite obvious. Their blockbuster move was to get Micah Parsons for games like this. How does he perform? But on the flip side for the Eagles, it was the first time so far this year going into a game you felt confident in that defensive line for a multitude of reasons. One, they're just getting healthy after the bye week and they have Nolan Smith back. And then the trade for Jaelan Phillips. So now this becomes a very deep lineup at both defensive tackle and defensive end. It is the closest that you have felt since you had Josh Sweat on that line a year ago. And it felt that way from the very beginning and all night for 60 minutes straight. The ability for them to get pressure, to have multiple looks, to have multiple guys who can make an impact. Seeing Jalen Hunt out there in the second unit was crazy to me. He had a sack last night. And Jaelan Phillips, I can't sing the praises enough of one of many guys on that defense. You can't sing the praises enough. But 8 pressures in his debut. But aside from that, his run-stopping ability, which I feel like I was not either focused on or aware of because we've been so focused on who's going to be the guy to get home on the quarterback, but he had 5 tackles as well in run-stopping situations. So you're getting a guy who is setting edges, playing physical, and in a game like that, that's exactly what you need. This, to me, like the knock on the Dolphins has always been in these cold weather moments, in physical games, they kind of bend quicker than the other defenses do. Jaelan Phillips was the opposite of that. Like, I feel like he was meeting the moment the most out of anybody on the field, and statistically met the moment more than Micah Parsons, which I didn't expect at all going into this game. So I thought he was awesome, but it just goes to show the depth. Like I said, Jalen Hunt is now playing in your second unit again. It was a concern of mine going into the season where I'm like, this is a guy who is very, very talented, but still learning the position. He was a safety less than a half a decade ago who's now playing defensive edge rusher in the NFL. That's a crazy transition to make. So not only is he learning the position, he's playing the most amount of snaps that you would have ever expected him to play. Same with Nolan Smith, whose one knock, another guy who I love, his one knock is that he might have durability concerns because he might be slightly undersized. He certainly at no point in his career has ever played undersized. And it was great to have him back last night. He made some plays as well. He got in there for a sack. But again, those guys were playing a snap count that they were unaccustomed to. You bring Jaelan Phillips in, and now it just feels like everybody feels level set, right? Like everybody's getting the proper amount of snaps. Everybody's super effective in those snaps. They feel so level set. And they didn't even ease Jaelan Phillips in. They mentioned it on the broadcast at one point, but he was out there for 22 of the first 28 snaps. He's out there. He's a starter. They believe that this guy is a difference maker. He is going to be on the field. If they have a chance for him to be out there, he will be out there, and he met the moment tremendously. He had the fumble recovery as well. So that part of the line, the edge rusher, it's the first time all year that you felt confident, and it feels good because going into the week, you thought this would be your chance, right? Like you thought this would be the first time this season with Nolan Smith back for the first time since the Tampa Bay week where he didn't play, and with Jaelan Phillips, you're like, okay, we got something here. Brandon Graham played as well. He had a few plays out there. It was good to see him back. Thought he looked like a guy who hadn't played this year and has been playing for 16 years, but God love him, and I love him to death. He only got a few snaps, but it was good to see him out there. Again, pretty much like in a Roy Kent role where he's a coach on the field, and if that's what they need, that's what they need, and hopefully he can give them a few impactful snaps going forward at that edge rusher position. On the interior of the defensive line, another guy that I can't sing the praises of enough. He's been going viral in a clip for the final 4th and 1 play for the Packers, but he called out, he was like, inside zone that way, on the 4th and 1 for the Packers. It was, in fact, an inside zone that way. He called it out. The Eagles get the stop and they get the ball back, and that is the moment that is sticking out because he was the one calling out the play and everybody could hear it over the broadcast. But at the same time, I thought that was one of many plays for him last night. He was a huge disruptor. He was constantly in the backfield. And now, when the people have recognized that moment, they're going back to the All-22 film. He was doing that all night. He was calling out where the runs for the Packers were going to go. And maybe that was why he was in the backfield so much, is he was just beating the blocking scheme because he knew what was coming. So not only was he a great disruptor last night, not only did he call out what the play was going to be in the final moments of the game with the game on the line, he has been that impactful all year and has met the moment in taking that next step after Milton Williams left in free agency. So I think you have to be just... This is the moment that you can kind of crown Moro Ojomo for the tremendous impact and positive strides that he's made so far this season, because this is like a tangible result. But it has been there all year, and it's been awesome. I thought it was some of the best Jalen Carter football that we've seen. To me, it just felt like he at the beginning of the year he didn't have rhythm because he got, obviously he's ejected on the first play of the game in Dallas, so he doesn't play that game, and he just looked behind. Like, he looked a step behind for the weeks to follow because he's just, and I think he had an injury as well. He hurts his arm the following week, so it felt like every time you watched him play against Kansas City and LA and the games following his ejection, he was just always in pain. Like, he's grabbing his wrist or his hand after every play. Now that he's settled back in, there's less talk about spitting and all this stupid stuff, and there's more impact on the football being played. He's been highly productive, and I think he has such a high football IQ. We talk about the physicality and the violence that he plays with. I love when a defender knows they're not going to get home and they get their hands up. Jalen Carter might be one of the best defensive tackles in the league at that. He gets his hands on so many footballs, whether he's going above or sometimes when he's going below when they're trying to do the QB spike. But he's done such a good job of that. He did it again last night. He had a few batted balls down, and he's another guy. Like, there's a play, and I think Fran Duffy called this out. Moro Ojomo knows where the play is calling. He's calling it out. He's telling Jahad Campbell where to be before the play because he's telling you where they're going to run. They run the play. Jalen Carter is immediately in the backfield. He gets the tackle on Josh Jacobs for no gain. So that is working in tandem, having high football IQ, being physical in your movement so you don't get beat on blocks. It's like every single thing you could ask for from a defensive line they did last night. And there's so much more to get into because this is such a sloppy, ugly 10-7 Big Ten West football at noon on ESPN2 type of game. But man, if you want to talk about how the Eagles could repeat, and you take like an example of what worked that you would say, okay, well, why could they repeat now? Like, why do you feel different now versus then, which was before the season? It's this defensive line. And you did it against a good team on the road who made it a point to want to run the football. And they did it early on. They wanted to establish Josh Jacobs. And it felt like everything Josh Jacobs did last night, aside from the series when they were in a hurry-up situation, he had to work for everything that he got. A lot of short runs. They were positive runs, but everything turns into 2nd and 7, 2nd and 8. I just thought that they were awesome. I just thought it was an awesome defensive line performance, and it was everybody. And it'll take everybody if you want to repeat. And if you get that type of performance in a playoff game from your defensive line, you feel very, very confident about them. So I meant just 2 Packers things really quick, because I also touched on this on the preview show going in. I don't know if I want to start with the 4th down stop or Jordan Love, but they all go with the same thing, man. Like, if I were a Packers fan, I think I'd be infuriated with Jordan Love and with Matt LaFleur. So I'll just knock out the 4th and 1, because I already touched on it with Moro Ojomo, but he called out exactly where the play was going to go. They were doing inside zone run play. They're in shotgun on 4th and 1. They call it out. They lose 3 yards. They actually fumble the football, and they have a legal formation penalty all in the same play. So bing, bang, boom, you're 0 for 3. Biggest play of the game. You get a penalty, you turn the ball over on downs, and you fumble the football. And there's 3 guys in the backfield before Josh Jacobs even gets his hands on the ball to carry it. So that right there is just infuriating. But the problem for the Packers is there's just not a super successful play that works 92% of the time on 4th and 1 situations that they could have went to right there. And they had 2 timeouts, and they didn't have to rush, but they rushed anyway. And man, I'm just sitting there scratching my head saying, boy, oh boy, wouldn't it be nice to have a play that is almost a cheat code, according to the NFL propaganda media and the fan bases of loser teams, that is so unstoppable. And you're allowed to move early now. They don't call the false starts. That's been the big talking point of everybody. If only there was a play out there that the Packers could have gone to in that 4th and 1 situation that could have saved them. But I'll keep racking my brain and see if I come up with anything. See if there's anything that, isn't banned, that certain teams tried to ban in the offseason and proposed to the league that should be banned. And then we had to talk about it every single week, despite the fact that the play results in a 1-yard gain every single time. I'll keep scratching and racking my brain to see if I could come up for anything for the Packers. So if they're set in that situation again on 4th and 1, they don't lose 3 yards and fumble the football and turn the ball over on downs with the game on the line. I'll keep thinking about it for you, Packers fans. See what I can come up with. I'll spend the day in the lab. See if I get back to you and find anything. My God. I'm so done talking about this play, by the way. And also, we all noticed that when they ran it earlier in the game, there was a false start on the Packers. And man, it is kind of annoying when they don't call a false start on the offense when they run that sneak play. But at the same time, the NFL, I don't want your paid media members posting highlights of the Eagles moving early on a tush push and then blatantly ignoring the fact that the Packers also had a false start on the same exact play. That's propaganda. It is the textbook definition of it. Your commissioner and your league wanted this play banned, and now the paid mouthpieces for that league are pushing in an agenda to help get this play banned. Propaganda to its fullest. I'm so tired of talking about this play. But I just wanted to touch on that. Again, we'll see if there's any plays. We'll think about it. Jordan Love, if he was my quarterback, would drive me up a wall. I have many things to say about the Eagles and their offensive struggles, but if it were Jordan Love on my team, I would lose my mind because he makes some of the most next-level head-scratching plays, and maybe it's a combination of him and LaFleur, but there are so many coming up small moments, and it's just like, who is your marquee win? What is your marquee victory? Because to me, LaFleur is now 0-4 against the Eagles, and Jordan Love is now 0-3 against the Eagles. And by Eagles, I mean the Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni era. The 0-4 against Hurts and Sirianni, and 0-3 for Jordan Love. And this particular occasion, it felt like the Eagles did everything in their power to give the Packers the game at some point, and they just didn't take advantage of it. It was the SpongeBob scene where Plankton wanted SpongeBob to be aggressive and be assertive, and they tries to get the ice cream cone. He's like, let him have it. And he's like, you can have it. That's how I felt watching Jordan Love last night, is you got one of the worst Eagles offensive performances and still nothing. like, how many times do we need to run the sample before we have a large enough sample size to stop comparing these two quarterbacks and these two teams? Because last night might have been it for me. And I was frustrated with the Eagles, but I just kept thinking to myself, man, if I were a Packers fan, I'd be livid right now because this is just ugly. It is ugly. And granted, there are certain like situations there. The Packers going into the game were down Tucker Kraft. Matthew Golden didn't play. Romeo Doubs left in the second half. So you're losing your speedster field extender and Matthew Golden. Tucker Kraft, an incredible play yards after the play type of tight end, who's been maybe the most dynamic tight end in the league so far this year. And then losing a quality receiver mid-game is also tough because then you're scrambling. So I thought that combination of not being able to really stretch the field, not having really like playmaker capabilities out of your pass catchers, made the Eagles pass rush even more aggressive and effective. But yet, like, there's just certain plays, again, sometimes you miss receivers because you don't have enough time to get to that receiver in your progression. But it felt like he missed receivers. And the fumble at the end of the half is the one that I'm just like, why is it that once a week I see an abomination of a football play from Jordan Love? Last week it was the across his body heave into the end zone and the TV pans and there's no Packers receiver in the area and he's just throwing it like it's jackpot in the backyard to a Carolina defender. And this week it's a hot potato where he tries to, I don't even know, I guess throw the football or pitch the football to the running back and kind of just throws his arms up hot potato style and fumbles the football. It eliminated a chance for the Packers to put points on the board going into the half. The Eagles come out in the second half and immediately put points on the board. And it just felt like a defining moment of the game and something that I feel like I'm just constantly watching with Jordan Love. And I know I'm an Eagles fan, so it doesn't mean much, but I feel like I was pretty bullish on the Packers going into the season and thought that they could be the main team to knock off the Eagles. And I walked away and I'm like, again, we're like, really? Again? I'm watching like bad news Bears highlights, turnovers again, like 7 points in a big moment again. I don't know. It just, from afar, it frustrated me. So I'm very curious how Packers fans feel. Speaking of frustration, the Eagles offense was on the field last night. We want to just end the podcast there. There's not much to say about how that went. I thought that they were completely ineffective for large stretches. And again, just like with the Packers and with Jordan Love, there are elements that would make you super ineffective. One, it is a cold weather game. It is a game where you don't expect a track meet out of these two teams. It's cold. You're not going to be able to throw it like you're used to being able to throw it in climates like that. You're playing a really good defense. And then this has been a constant with the Eagles, no matter who the coach is, no matter who the quarterback is, for the past decade or so, when Lane Johnson is out of the lineup, it is a very different team. Like, they're just not as effective both running and passing the ball when he's out. And they were missing Cam Jurgens, and then they lost Lane Johnson, and you always feel that impact when he is not on the field. Now, another guy, because we're singing praises all day today, Fred Johnson.
Yeah, Fred! Yeah, Fred! Yeah, Fred!
I think every time he's thrust into these roles has been really effective. Like, I think he holds his own every single time. And what a trade to bring him back in the preseason after he signed with Jacksonville. I think he had he wanted to leave to have the opportunity to start somewhere, and it didn't work out in Jacksonville. And he is back home in such a perfect scenario for him. He's been really good as that extra blocker when they go into the jumbo packages. He was really good at filling in for Lane Johnson. And again, it matters because there's so many instances in a season your offensive line just isn't going to hold. Nobody's offensive line holds. There's injuries everywhere. You look at the Chargers right now. They were missing guys. The Packers lost an offensive lineman last night. Before this game, they were missing their tackles. So it feels like nobody holds for the constant of 17 games plus playoffs. You need to have impactful depth on that line. Fred Johnson was that again for the Eagles last night. So I wanted to sing his praises because I know a lot of what we're going to talk about with this defense is going to be negative, but he did fill in very well. The Eagles on offense, you watch that first drive and it lasts 9 minutes and it felt like everything was clicking. And it was the variety in which it clicked because they were able to run the ball effectively. They were in those like jumbo packages, and you saw that on the first drive. But then they get in the shotgun, and it's these like short or intermediate routes that work to A.J. Brown. You're like, yeah, a 7-yard throw to A.J. Brown on 1st and 10? Hell yeah, set up 2nd and 3. You got everything working for you right there. And even on the final play of that 16-play, 9-minute drive where Jalen Hurts turns the ball over, on a 3rd down where they spread them out, go empty, and allow Jalen Hurts to take off on a QB draw, that was something we saw too much of in 2023, but we haven't seen much of it this year, and I thought that was like the perfect play call in that time. And it was such a beautiful drive, aside from the fumble, where it felt like everything they tried worked, and you saw some like vintage Jalen Hurts where Micah Parsons was tracking him down on a 3rd down, and he outlets it to Will Shipley with a great throw over the defender. And, man, you just saw vintage everything with the Eagles, like getting A.J. Brown involved, being able to run the ball successfully on 1st down with Saquon Barkley, Hurts getting out of the pocket and making magic happen, the QB draw with Hurts so you can use his legs to his advantage. Everything. You saw everything. And then they just, like, go away from that stuff. And I just don't get it. And is it, to me, as somebody who isn't an expert, it does feel at times like I'm watching a play caller who is calling plays for his first season and reacts in a way like he is calling his plays for the first time, where anything you do in life, you react slower when you're not familiar, right? Like it could be cooking. Like you double check the ingredient book to be, oh, it was 3 tablespoons, right? Like anything. When you're driving and you're first learning, you look both ways a bunch of times before you go through the stop sign because you're just being cautious because your reaction time isn't as quick because you're still learning how to do something.
Drive? No. What? No, I don't know how to fucking drive. I don't know what any of this shit is, and I'm fucking scared. What are you talking about, you psycho? You know how to drive? Not everybody knows how to do everything. Driving isn't the only thing. Just move your car! Okay. I don't know how I can.
I feel the exact same, like watching Kevin Patullo call plays, where it feels like their reactionary time to defenses making adjustments is slow. Because yet again, we've seen it before. Like the Bucs game was a great example. They didn't complete a pass in the second. They looked awesome in the first half, and then did not complete a pass in the second half. So you say to yourself, well, what changed? And it feels like defenses make adjustments, and we don't react to those adjustments. And I very much think that's just because we have a play caller who's not used to having to make he's just slow in his reaction time. He's figuring it out on the fly. That to me felt like last night. They're in these jumbo packages, and I get it. It's cold. You just want to run the ball. You're down 2 starting offensive linemen, so let's put some more big bodies on the field. Let's get an extra offensive lineman. Let's run with a fullback. Let's run with an extra tight end. I get it. But it almost felt like it was working to their disadvantage. And when they came out in the second half and went with RPO-style runs, it was the most effective that they were, and they were able to move the ball down the field and put a field goal on the board. And it feels like that continues to happen, where they're almost better running the ball when they mix in that RPO style with those jumbo sets. Like they get too heavily reliant on one type of set. Again, another thing, they get to the line so slow. That to me is a guy who is probably slow in choosing a play, getting the offense the play, because it's his first time doing these things, so everything moves slower. And that, after a while, does start to bother you. I just think everything is slow in the reaction time of what they do. And anytime they find rhythm, man, do they hit it. I know that was a long, slow drive for that 9-minute drive, but they were getting to the line, they were making their plays, like it felt just adamant in what they wanted to do, because they probably scripted those plays during the week. And then when the defense makes adjustments, they start to struggle. And they come out in the second half, and they probably have a scripted idea of what they wanted to do, and they look flawless. They go down and get points. The RPO, beautiful. They did a great job with it. They got Goddard involved. Some great throws from Hurts on that drive. And then, again, anytime they get rhythm. So it's a 3rd down. Later in the game, Saquon Barkley, vintage, just like X-Factor Saquon, where you get him in open space, one-on-one, spin move, see ya. 43 yards, He's to the Giants 30, where they were in a third down. He turns on for 40-plus yards. It was the back-breaking play of the night for the Eagles offense against that Packers defense, where it just was vintage Saquon in open space, big moment that you've been seeing since he leaped over a guy at Iowa when he was in college. And then they have some rhythm. So they shotgun, play action, deep crossing post to Devontae Smith, touchdown. It's like, so every time they get rhythm, it feels like they start to put it together, but it can be so rigid in between those times. That's what they need to work on. And here's a good example. Late game, like 4-minute drill stuff where they were up 10-0 or 10-7. They were up 10-7 at that point. They have the ball. They're moving the ball well. I think they're on the plus side of the 50 in the Packers territory on this play. But it's a second down. And what I've seen situationally from the Eagles, and I don't hate this, I actually really love what they do. On second down in a running situation where you're trying to run clock, they actually pass because it catches the defense off guard. They run play action, they get it out to their tight end, all of this stuff. Last night, I feel like they've gone to that so many times that you now pick it up on film that in a 4-minute drill, run the clock situation, the Eagles are going to actually throw it on second down. So last night would have been a good time to adjust and say, you know what, we're going to stick jumbo package here. Or we're going to run out of shotgun with Saquon. Just to throw them off a little bit, and we're going to actually run on second down and 7. They passed. The Packers were completely ready for it. Now you're in 3rd and 7 and the clock stops. But again, that to me is we're not reacting, right? Like we're not having a good game feel. We're not having a good game pulse. We've gone back to that well so many times that it's now on film. The Eagles are going to run on first down. They're going to throw it on second down. If they're in a 4-minute drill situation, they're going to try to get Goddard out in the flat. In that situation, or they're going to play action it to Saquon Barkley in that situation. We've just seen it on film one too many times. I think people pick up on it. So, again, all of the struggles to me stem from the reaction time. And you could see it on the drives that don't work, in the late game awareness. And then last thing to touch on, but 4th down. What are we doing? I am all for being uber aggressive on offense. Going for it on 4th down. If you're on the plus side of the 50 and you punt, like the Packers did on a 4th and 9, earlier in that game, right before the Eagles score, you punt on a plus side of the 50. If it's on 4th and 20, ew, what are you doing? I'm all for being aggressive. That might be the only time I wouldn't have been aggressive. There's 33 seconds left on the clock. The Packers have no timeouts. It's going to be a running clock situation. You venture to guess that a punt from the Eagles in that situation would be 6 or 7 seconds. You'd have 26 seconds, hopefully, from the 10. Worst case scenario, 20. It would have been a difference of 20 yards, which in regular game flow would be nothing. And I would hate that. It's exactly what the Packers ran into on the drive where we scored a touchdown. They punted from the 40. There was a touchback, and the Eagles got the ball at the 20. So they only netted a positive of 20 yards. In 99 out of 100 cases, that's bad. This is the one case where that's actually good because the difference of 20 yards with 25 seconds on the clock and no timeouts is the difference between them getting off a field goal and them not. Anything in bounds on a play, run from the 10 or the 20, they are screwed. It would be absolute Hail Mary situation, and they aren't even in Hail Mary range. And last night with McManus, his range very clearly on that free kick that he shouldn't have been allowed to have was 60 yards. So you think about it, they would have had to get like 30-plus yards in 20 seconds with no timeouts and anything within the field of play without Matthew Golden, without Tucker Kraft, without Romeo Doubs, anything within the field of play, they are absolutely screwed. Like it'd be a running clock situation, and they'd have one play left for a heave. So it was the one time I don't understand our aggressiveness. I didn't like the aggressiveness. I thought it was odd, and I thought it opened the door for the Packers. And it was a fitting end with one of the worst kicks I've ever seen. And even in that situation, I was very curious what the Packers were trying to do. I know they were trying to pick up a few extra yards after they got that free kick. to see if they can get him within range. They nearly got it picked off because it was pretty clear what they were trying to do. And what a fitting end for that one. My goodness. The Eagles are 7-2. And at some point, the results have to matter. I've talked about this before. But they have now beaten LA. They've beaten Kansas City on the road. They've beaten Green Bay on the road. They've beaten Tampa on the road. So another great win. And I think you come away from that game saying, hey, when we get back to Philly and we're playing Detroit, which is another incredible test, and we'll talk about that this week, but this is where the offense kicks in. But I think my main takeaway from this game is how good that defensive line looked, how much pressure they were able to get, how many different guys on that defensive line were able to make an impact. So that, to me, was a cause of concern earlier in the season. I touched on them being tough attention detail, and they were none of it in the Thursday night game against the Giants. They were all of it against the Packers, and it was great to see the defense as a whole, because you saw plays from Jahad Campbell, Quinyon Mitchell. Again, when he went down, I was very worried, but he had another great game. And it just was an all-time A-plus effort from the Eagles defense when they needed it most. And I think that's your main takeaway, is they played Super Bowl-level defense if you want to get back there. So that was awesome. Like I said, big week this week. We have an interview with Tom Stakes coming out. He was at the game in Green Bay. Crazy travel logistics just to get there with a bunch of canceled flights going around. So I want to touch with him on the experience of going to Green Bay. We'll talk about this game. We'll preview the Detroit game. And we've got a special announcement coming this week for where we are going to be hosting and streaming the Eagles-Cowboys game coming up here in 2 weeks. That should be a big one as well. So I appreciate everybody for their support. The Eagles get a win. They're 7-2. And it is my promise to the Packers fans listening, I will try to find a play for you guys to run on 4th and 1 that's super effective. There's got to be one out there. I'm on the case. We'll talk to you guys soon.